extrapolate that into the actual corporate American company.
I get more excited about at Expo than anything else in my life. I like doing this. I love coffee. I love my kids. I love my wife. I like my house. I like my camera. I just am just fascinated by Apple technology. It's a blast. It used to be that Expo was where you learned about everything that came out. Whatever it was, you wanted to see it, touch it, and see the specs. And there was no internet, so you had one chance a year. And we all went. And we all went as many times as we could, because that's where you got involved.
A Macintosh trade show is unlike any other computer conference. In fact, it's more like a love fest than a trade show with adoring Mac users eager to gobble up the latest Macintosh products and applications.
I always say that Muslims go to Mecca, we come to Makkah.
The Mac crowd itself is one of the most diverse crowds I've ever seen. And going to the Mac conference, it's like every color, every stripe, every sexual orientation. You know, suddenly it's just like, whoa, here's this huge slice of all these different types of lifestyles, you know?
Well, Mac users back then, there were just a few of us seeking each other out, supporting each other. There was not a lot of software. You would go out and buy something because it was all there was to buy. Rhys Jones helped get it going. He was the first one down to the computer store to say, hey, let's get a Mac user group going.
Joining us in the studio now is Rains Cohen, SysOp of the BMUG Bulletin Board. BMUG stands for Berkeley Mac Users Group.
Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about BMUG. What do you do there?
Well, we started as a UC Berkeley student group, University of California at Berkeley, and we now about 6,000 members around the world.
And how do you, as a users group, see shareware? I mean, what's the point?
Well, we are an educational nonprofit organization, and we're sort of in the business of giving away information.
We try to build a culture of sharing. The motto of BMUG was, we're in the business of giving away information. BMUG met every week on the Berkeley campus. It was really up to us to support each other, take care of each other, and we built systems to do that, publishing a newsletter twice a year. People started getting together to bring the latest information, tips, techniques. It was, a small core of Mac users compared to a larger field of computer users overall. So it was all about helping each other make the most of our computers.
Mac user groups are a way of getting involved in the community on a personal level, as opposed to the internet, which is kind of interpersonal. I can't see your face, I can't hear your voice. There used to be a great resource for software. A lot of them would give out floppy disks back in the day. And it was a way to go once a month and talk to people and get them to talk to you about your Macintosh.
The heyday of the user groups was basically when I was in high school. The East Coast had the Boston Computer Society Mac user group. The West Coast had the Berkeley Macintosh users group. Of course, there was lack of internet, lack of message boards. You'd have to go to a meeting, and then someone will say, well, actually, I was doing a bus ad the other day, and there's a $400 program, but there's a $10 trick you can do instead. And you're saying, tell me about that $10 trick.
They were like the internet these days. They used to do a lot of swapping software. They used to bring floppy disks, and they would like illegally trade software with each other by popping it in and out of their computers.
We were the largest users group in the United States, probably in the world, actually. It was all a volunteer group, and there were like 9 or 10 of us who would donate, 20, 30 hours a week. BMUG group also was very instrumental because we traveled to all the major Apple Macworlds. There was Macworld San Francisco, there was Macworld Boston, there was Macworld Tokyo, there was Macworld Paris, and we would go there and we would help people set up their own users group within the community of that area. So we were really a central clearinghouse of information about the Mac.
My earliest memory of the Mac community is when I was really little. I think I was young as maybe 3, And I remember every Tuesday night, my dad would go out and it would be meeting night. I had no idea what meeting night is, but now I know it was a Mac user group.
We've had meetings every week for more than a decade, and people would traditionally go out to dinner after the meeting.
This is the 20th annual Netters Dinner. A lot of the people who come here have been doing Macintosh from the days of old. And when I say the days of old, I'm talking very, very old folks.
In what year did you start using the Macintosh? 2007, anyone? 88. 87. 84. There we go. How many people have 3 or more? 8, 9, 10. This is your house, right, Chuck? Right. Any Mac 128s that are working? Eileen! Eileen needs something for a 128K working Mac.
Well, the problem was that it was a computer that was not widely adopted. Computers were still very mysterious, very different, and people all needed to learn how to use them. The Mac community made it into a much bigger thing. It wasn't just you go to a meeting and talk about computers, but people were also talking about what they were doing with those computers.
I love coming to the meetings. I like the pizza. I like the camaraderie that we have here.
You get free pizza at the meetings, and we do a lot of fun things, such as talk about our computers. It's the place to be.
This year's Macworld Expo has the usual displays of faster hardware, spiffy software, thousands of adoring Macintosh fans. But the big issue at this Macworld is not the hardware or the software, but the company itself. And the question everyone is asking is, how will Apple recover from what has unquestionably been a terrible year?
People are asking me, I heard Apple's going out of business, I heard that the Mac's not going to be here anymore, should we still be buying Macintosh?
And there's a lot of people out there saying, oh, the Mac is dead. Are you crazy? Face up to reality, Apple is dead. We're not afraid to say, we love the Mac and we think PCs and Windows suck.
People have been talking about the demise of Apple for the longest time, but it's never really happened. And as we know, that's still 25 million really fiercely loyal customers.
You got to be an optimist to be a Mac user, because there were those hard times. There were times when we thought maybe, you know, maybe I'll have to use a Windows system. Maybe there won't be a Mac in a couple of years. It was kind of tough.
Yeah, there was a short period where I thought, gee, this could happen. I could have to use a PC. I didn't worry a lot about it. I knew it was possible.
The mid-90s was such a frustrating time because we knew as Mac users that Apple wasn't going away and that it couldn't go away. We would have entered the dark ages if Apple went away. We couldn't let that happen. It drove me crazy.
In the early 90s, I met Bruce Damer, an expert in so-called avatar virtual worlds, fell in love, married him, and defected to the PC.
When we first met, I had kind of given up on the Mac. The Mac just wasn't evolving, and you couldn't run a lot of programs on the Mac. So I said, no, we can't have a Mac. We can't run all the new stuff on it, and got all cranky, and she was kind of sad about that.
So for 10 lonely years, I was a PC person only. I forsook the Mac.
We're transitioning from a dialogue that has centered on survival, and we went out and we raised some money, and no one asks me yet anymore whether we have enough cash to get by.
At the time, Apple was supposed to die, the cult was dying, etc., etc. So they brought me in basically to preserve the cult.
Guy Kawasaki, for those folks who don't know, was he literally on his business cards, he was the chief evangelist for Apple.
Evangelism started as a way to get the news out about the Mac to people who had never seen it before, and it was all developers. It was before it released. And there you were really taking the message of, you don't understand how big this is, how big it's going to be. And then Guy Kawasaki came back and did a much more user-focused evangelism. And It was much more about rallying the troops. And